Great to see you this morning. And Rosanna and Scott and Anita. Great
Good
to see
morning.
you too.
Morning.
We have a lot to talk about after this 4th of July. We're going to talk a little bit about the 4th of. I want to know where were you on the 4th of July and what were you doing? I want to have that. Secondly, the Supreme Court. What a term! I mean, they just ended with a flourish of horrible, horrible rulings. An activist court, if there ever was one. But uh, come together, children, don't get weary. The labor movement is up and on the rise, and we're going to talk about the potential for a number of very important strikes and other labor actions that took place. Like Rosanna, I heard the hotel workers went out in Chicago, I'm sorry, in LA,
That's right.
and 15,000 workers at the Unite HERE Local 1 went out for 4 or 5. I think they're back now, but they were showing muscles,
Yep.
you know, and not little kids walking around talking about, I got muscles. We used to do that when we were little. This was the muscle of labor power. And we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And then finally, our mailbag. But let's start with the 4th of July. I hope you had a good one, Rosanna. What'd you do?
Well, what I did is I actually went to Oakland and presented on my experience in China to comrades to a gathering that was honoring Comrade Gary Hicks, who had passed. They had a book sale and potluck and presentation, and then I flew back home.
Very
That's
good.
what I did.
By the way, y'all, Rosanna has a PowerPoint on her trip to China. If you want to see it, write to us. Right, Rosanna?
That's
At
right.
membership at cpusa.org or cpusa at cpusa.org. And we can take that show on the road. Anita, what did you
That's right.
do? What did you do on the 4th?
Well, I had a pretty boring 4th of July. I was feeling a little under the weather. And I was telling Scott earlier, I cleaned out my closet, which is something, an accomplishment. But I also listened to that great documentary that was made by children, well, great grandchildren or great grandchildren of Frederick Douglass, reading his speech about the 4th of July. What is the 4th of July to the slave? It's such a powerful speech and a great video, and I recommend it to anybody. It's really gives you a different perspective on the 4th of July and how these holidays symbolize certain social formations that are kind of painful to remember right now. So that was my
Yeah,
fourth.
it's a powerful read too. Douglas's "What
Mm-hmm.
is the 4th of July to the Slave?" On the 4th, I was wondering about that. Is a lot of homeless in New York, and you see men and women and other genders, non-women, sleeping on the streets, and they're free to, starve, free to, go hungry, free not to have shelter. Um, Terrible thing. Scott, 4th of July,
What I
aside
do?
from shooting fireworks and listening to the bombs bursting in air, what did you do on the 4th of July?
I stayed home. I mowed my lawn. I think cleaned out my garage a little bit. Uh, didn't go to any fireworks. I don't even think they had any in my town. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, that was a very boring 4th of July. But I'll kind of piggybacking on what Anita said. It'd be a good time for the United States to think about cleaning out its closets, getting rid of some of the accumulated trash of, white supremacy and the various forms of oppression and genocide that have characterized the history of this country.
Touche. Good follow up, Scott. Rosanna, should we celebrate the 4th of July?
Well, I think that's a kind of a tricky question. You know, it's a historical event in this country, but I think it has to be looked at in its perspective, in its correct perspective, and what it really meant. And I think Frederick Douglass's speech really lays it out in a very important way. And you know, to me, it seems like people don't really. I would say the majority of the people don't celebrate it because it's an Independence Day of some sort. It's just a time that you can blow out fireworks. Here, it sounds like a war zone in Los Angeles, and you have time to, you know, it's like you set aside time to go and spend time with your family. Uh, Personally, I like fireworks. I like the lights and all of that. I enjoy it, but it's not because it's patriotic or anything like that. I just think they're kind of amazing types of, you know, trickery, or I don't know what it is, but I don't want. But I also, on the fourth, I always think about the victims of gunfire, you know, and having to listen to the all the constant fireworks, and it just triggers those who have been victimized, you know, by these mass shootings, and the veterans who have been through to war and it's no longer the 4th of July for them. It's another day that reminds them of the trauma that they've been through. So I think there's many factors and many, you know, ways to look at it. But I'm looking forward to the day that we celebrate our country, our country's beginning transition from capitalism to socialism. That one I will really celebrate.
Hell yeah.
Well said. Well said. Anita,
Hmm.
should we celebrate the 4th
Well,
of
I think
July?
I think it is a time to reflect. First of all, it's a day off, and it's a summer picnic day, you know. And if I think spending time with where everyone, many people have a holiday that day, so it's a good day to get together with family and friends and enjoy company locally. And I guess it is a time to reflect on, you know, those, as I said, those symbolic holidays and what they mean to our country. But sure, I think people should get together and you know, have some picnic, have a good day with each other.
Have that barbecue, eat them
Exactly.
ribs, eat that corn on the cob, macaroni salad,
Mhm.
potato salad with potato
Great
chips.
eating.
Scott, should we or shouldn't we? I mean,
I think it all depends on what we're celebrating. You know, there's never a bad time to celebrate the struggle for democracy, for justice, for a better world. But I think, like so many things, you know, the kind of revolutionary energy, the drive for equality and democracy, it gets twisted into something, you know, often very ugly and very out of touch with what the needs of the people and especially the needs of the working class are. So yeah, celebrate. Yeah, we should celebrate the continuing struggle for a better world and for the gains that have been made in it. But we should reject any attempt to turn it into a celebration of imperialism or of, you know, shallow um, national chauvinism or xenophobia. That's all bullshit.
there are two cultures, two traditions, two nations, two concepts of patriotism, love of country, developing. One is bourgeois, and that's the imperialist one that you were just referring to, Scott. The other is working class, proletarian, pro democratic, pro women, pro LGBTQ. And isn't y'all read that article by Victor Grossman in the PW, which talked about these issues, you know? And he makes the point that from the standpoint of working class culture, people's culture, there's a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to celebrate in the fight against slavery with William Lloyd Garrison, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth. A lot to celebrate in the turn of the century. I mean, you can celebrate the bourgeois democratic revolution too. I ain't gonna be mad at you. It was incomplete. Yeah, it had slavery. Yeah, it had genocide. But over and above the feudal monarchy that existed before it, it was an objectively a historic advance, even though it met degradation for hundreds of millions. But there's a lot to celebrate in the fight against the First World War. Debs stood against it, you know. A lot to celebrate in the NAACP's founding, and before that, the Niagara Movement. I'm not going to trace the whole history of the United States this morning, but we have to build on those traditions, it seems to me, uphold them, celebrate them, and you know, not to do that is to separate ourselves from well, it's not telling the truth, and we're separating ourselves from. On the other hand, we can't go around pushing no false patriotism, you know, like these socialist patriots. They call themselves mega communists. What a contradiction in terms. You know, and that goes all the way back to the First World War, when the socialist parties, filled with nationalism and chauvinism, voted for war credits, and Lenin and them called them social patriots. Remember that? It's true. This is not a new concept. So our goal has to always be to uplift the workers, the poor, the people of color, the women, LGBTQ, and all of those struggling and fighting for a new life. Those who oppose gun violence, those who support the environment, animal rights too. You know, the way we treat animals is disgusting. It just really is. I'm for abolishing zoos, by the way. I am holding life in captive like that. Anyway, so now y'all can criticize me for that now too. I know some people will. That's okay. I can handle it.
That's not a
Let's
party
move these.
position, I think.
Huh?
It's not a party position per se, the anti-zoo.
No,
It's
I'm
not part of our
expressing
platform.
my position. I have a right to do
Okay,
that.
just clarifying.
Y'all yank me off the show. You can get the hook, yank my behind off the show. Well, there was a lot not to celebrate on the 4th of July, too. Most importantly, the rulings of the Supreme Court. Oh my goodness. On LGBTQ rights, on what were the other rulings?
Student
On
loans,
huh?
Affirmative
Student
action.
debt.
loans.
Student debt was another one, and a week before that, affirmative action. And then a lower court said that the Biden administration cannot interfere with social media, talk to social media companies. Imagine this. Can't talk to social media companies, Anita, about
about
COVID restrictions,
about disinformation. Just
vaccine disinformation, you know,
mhm,
and that oversteps their authority. Could there have
exactly.
been a worse court, Anita?
Excuse me, what did you
Would
ask?
there have been a worse
I don't think so. I mean,
court?
there were a couple of rulings that were okay and were surprisingly okay, like upholding the Child Welfare Act, ICWA. But overall, it was a disastrous court and a totally politicized court. And that especially the student loan case that it invoked this major questions doctrine, which is like 6 members of the Supreme Court who were not elected, who were appointed by presidents, mostly who weren't didn't win the popular vote either. They're taking it on themselves. It's a power grab to say what Biden can do. And when Biden was authorized by Congress to take those steps, it's outrageous and really it that and other rulings really seem to stem from a kind of a white supremacy um, background. And I just also want to remind people, why do we have these 3 extra judges, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett? Because we had an election in 2016 that people only wanted pure candidates, the best candidates, and as a result, we got Donald Trump and his band of right wing judges who are going to be on the court for a long time. So elections matter.
Rosanna, you're traveling in the Middle East someplace and you come across a lamp and a bottle and you unplug the bottle and the genie pops out. And the genie grants you 3 wishes with respect to the Supreme Court. Only about the Supreme Court,
Very
unfortunately.
specific genie, Joe.
Yeah.
What reforms what would you have that genie do?
Well, I think I would any judge that does not look at things objectively and make a decision objectively without is not able to do it without being partisan to one or the other. I'd kick them out. I'd put like a curse, have the genie put a curse on them. So the minute they become subjective, or they're being bought off by some rich person or anybody, um, kick them out. The
Kick
other
them
thing is
out.
that I think I would put in the working people's heads that voting does matter, and not to be dissuaded by these cliches that say, "Oh, it's just one vote," or "Oh, it doesn't really make a difference because they're all the same." Well, they're all the same because we don't get out there to vote. So I would do that. And then secondly, I think I would put term limits on those Supreme Court judges. I don't understand why they have to be there for life. And in fact, I think I read there's a bill that's being introduced, and I can't remember the Congress member's name, but is introducing a bill to um, put term limits on Supreme Court judges. That's what
It'd
I
be a
would do.
good thing. It would be a good thing. Scott, in the case of the the wedding cake, I mean, I'm just mystified by the decision because there was really no complaint. It was made up. No one asked them to make a wedding cake, and the person whose name that they used, he didn't know nothing about it.
Yeah, this is a common pattern, actually. So the rationale in that particular case was that if this person, this wedding website, whatever designer, had been put in the position where she would have to refuse service, she could have been punished by the state of Colorado. So on this pure hypothetical, the case, was, reached the Supreme Court. And this is, again, like I said, this is a pattern that the right uses of sort of astroturf lawsuits. The best example was not a national one, actually. It was in California a few years ago, but the lawsuit that ended teacher tenure in California was Vergara versus California. Um, the right wing tried to present that as like this uprising of parents who were dissatisfied with, the performance of teachers in the public schools. What it really was a billionaire who formed an organization, um, poured a whole bunch of money into shopping for somebody who would be willing to like make a pre-formatted complaint. And some of the union busting suits that have reached the Supreme Court have worked the same way. So these are not things that arise organically. They're things that are situations that are created by the right to take advantage of this unelected, packed Supreme Court that we've got.
This is a very Machiavellian right wing we have, Anita. I mean, they weren't born stupid. They're very, very clever, very, very adept at doing what they do. And the working class left, broader left, you gotta fight fire with fire, and uh, because we need radical reforms of the legal system in this country, desperately. And so you find Rosanna at the hotel in the Middle East, y'all traveling together. The genie done she done put that bad boy back in the bottle. And you find that y'all sharing a room, and you say, "Oh, what a nice bottle!" And you think there's some vino in there, and you're a little thirsty. So you pop it open, and you get 3 requests, same conditions, Supreme Court. What would they be?
Wow. Well, I would like to go back in time and get Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court when he was put forward, and like Rosanna said, term limits retroactively applied to Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas in particular. I mean, I wasn't for term limits when Justice Ginsburg was still alive, but now I can see it, and it's the fair thing to do, just to have term limits. Actually, with a genie with supernatural powers, I'm sure there's something even more. I like what Rosanna said too about calling out the genie to really take things into his or her own hands.
Well, if we're going back in time, I would put Lonnie Guinier on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Remember her?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She was the daughter of Ewart Guinier, and was supposed to be the Assistant Attorney General under the Clintons, and she got red baited. She wasn't a member of the party, but her dad may have been, and she got red baited, and they withdrew the nomination.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're going back in time, I would put Ben Davis on the Supreme Court, huh? Or John Abt, who was our attorney.
Yes.
And then
Maybe
you want to go
lessen the
back
influence
further,
of male supremacy on the Senate, and get Anita Hill some different treatment in the disgraceful performance that was her hearing, or the Thomas confirmation hearings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I'd go back and ask Justice Black, who started off as a Klansman, but who became one of the most progressive jurists. It just goes to show you can tell a person's intelligence by the older they get, the more to the left they move, not just vice versa. The older you get, the more conservative you. Becoming radical is a sign of intelligence. It really is. Okay, speaking of intelligence, the working class is intelligently rising up all over the country. And we just heard the other day that the Teamsters may go out on strike. The negotiations with the UPS broke down 4 o'clock 5 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. The company walked out the door, and the union, they're organizing strike practice pickets all over the country. They had some in Queens, they had having some in the Twin Cities, having some in a whole number of different places I heard about last night. Um, Big development, Rosanna. I don't know if you heard about any practice pickets in LA, but I'm sure the party's going to be out there supporting those workers.
Well, the party has been out here supporting the workers. One of our comrades, Rosalio, was arrested. There's a nice picture of him being handcuffed or walking with the police. Uh, so definitely, our comrades are there in support of the strikers, for the hotel workers, hospitality workers. There's also, I think I mentioned last week about the Medieval Times, the entertainment uh, established in some type of an entertainment thing show. They've been out on strike, and then the writers, and we are definitely here in Southern California organizing support for the different strikes that are coming, including the UPS.
One of the things that's come up is how we support strikes. How we support strikes. Going to the picket line, Anita, bringing a cup of coffee, bringing a pizza, that's good, and we should do it. And we need every club in the party to do that. But we also need to raise the level of our support. And by raising the level, we need to build community support for the strike, to build community labor unity. That's what one of our party leaders who was involved in the 1997 strike is emphasizing. That in order to put the fear of God into the company, they got to know that the workers are back home, in the neighborhoods, in the communities, on the campuses. And so we need to think through how to do that. Is the party in Ohio beginning to think that through?
I think we can combine both those things by, we have practice pickets in Columbus as well. We haven't gotten out to them, but we were trying to decide what kind of signage we should come with, and maybe signs that talk about community support of the Teamsters and supporting the workers. Also, writing letters to the editors of smaller newspapers around saying, these workers really deserve a fair wage, and they're not getting it from this company that's making so many billions of dollars in profit. So I think there are ways. We work also through a workers center, which is an organization that organizes unorganized workers for the most part, or helps with wage theft and that kind of thing for workers that don't have unions, but also really acts as an educator for the community about what labor unions are all about and how important they are, and how important they are to worker safety as well as worker you know uh, life chances, basically, to have a living wage and a chance um, to sort of a ticket to the middle class, is what Sherrod Brown always would say. I'm not sure about the concept of middle class. They're working class people, but they deserve to have a, a, a good life and have their children educated, and healthcare and everything. So I think it's really important to show community, for us to help show community support for the workers themselves,
I'm glad you
and
made
bring
that
pizza too.
point about middle class. I hate when the politicians do that. Scott, one of the ways of raising our level of our attention to these strikes is by every club should adopt a local. And there are UPS locals all over the country. Adopt a focus on a particular in your city or town, and they're in most towns. And as Anita said, you can write letters to the editor. You can go to the picket line and bring that coffee, bring that pizza, bring that water. Don't bring any beer though. And you can organize boycotts in your community. You know, that's another thing that you can do. So we need to think creatively about how to engage and how to organize. And I hope that when you meet with the comrades in Ithaca, y'all begin to think through how can we support this effort at a local level in a very, very specific way.
Yeah, the club in Ithaca is already in contact with the president of the local in the area, starting to talk about how we can support. There are a couple of things that I wanted to add. One is that part of this response is just being prepared to kind of push back when if a strike happens, it's going to be inconvenient, right? For a lot of people, who depend on getting like shopping online and getting stuff shipped to them. So being able to combat whatever negative feelings arise because of that, pointing out that, for example, if UPS gave $8.6 billion back to shareholders last year. It's on track to give $8.4 billion to shareholders this year. And if they can afford to give that much money to people who are not doing a goddamn thing to provide service, then they can certainly afford whatever demands the people actually delivering the parcels are making. So, being prepared to counter those kind of negative impressions of unions, and also we keep saying, voting matters, elections matter. The conditions for a strike like this would be much less favorable under a Republican president with a Republican nominated National Labor Relations Board. So the main energy, of course, comes from the workers and from communities, but the political context of it is important too. And that's something that Lenin always pointed out. It's never just about the struggle at the point of production. There's always the political question of pushing for reforms and greater democracy.
Now the workers are also asking us, the broader community, to do specific things right now. Like, for example, write your congressman and urge them, do not intervene in this strike. Do not intervene. We don't want nobody coming in here telling us we can't strike. And that's another way that you can build community support for. And this strike is going to involve, it's going to be the biggest one in U.S. history. 375,000 workers. That's a whole heap of workers,
6% of the GDP.
Yes, and so it's going to have a big impact. So write your congressman, House representatives, write your senator. You can write Biden too while you're at it. Do not interfere with this strike. You're going to be hell to pay if you do come election day. I'm telling you right now. Another thing is that UPS ain't the only people delivering packages. Amazon also delivers packages. And isn't this a wonderful way to build solidarity between the Amazon workers who are trying to unionize and the UPS workers who are already in the Teamsters? Huh? Hello? Lastly, I heard a rumor that on July 26th, Sunday, the People's World is holding a town hall forum around the issues of this and other strikes. So please go to the peoplesworld.org or cpusa.org, look for the announcements, and we'll be sending them out. And we want to, jump feet first into this struggle on
I think
behalf
that's
of
the
our,
16th, Joel.
no, it's going to be the 26th.
Okay.
Okay.
Should have been on the 16th because it would make life easier for us. But the Comrades
Okay.
the Labor Commission felt that there wasn't enough time.
All right then.
And so it's going to be on the Sunday of the Little Red Schoolhouse. It'll be a
That's good.
nice thing for them to participate in as
Mhm.
well. But I told them, don't come bothering us the week before. Y'all got to take care of everything else. And so they said, okay, we will do it. And the next thing they said is, Joe, can you be on the committee? I said, well, maybe for the first day or two. Mailbag. Um, One young man or woman or sibling wrote, I'm an anarchist and I'm thinking of joining the party. Most anarchists, as you know, Joe, are opposed to participation in any organized grouping, including mass political organizations like unions and political parties, which to me would give respect to the anarchist's trivial importance at best. Now, would I be welcome in the Communist Party, Rosanna?
Well, I think everyone is welcome as long as you agree with our program and our constitution. So I would urge um, them to read our party constitution and read our party program, so that they are sure that they really agree and want to join the party. If they want to join the party, then I would say that they are no longer an anarchist by their definition. So you know, I think history has shown us that it has to be a mass movement that brings about fundamental change, not one person or the other. So yes, they would be welcome as long as they agree with our party program and constitution.
Anita, you letting some anarchists into your club in Columbus?
I say they would be welcome to come and talk to us about our differences that we have with them about strategies and tactics. I think it's a really a key um, a strategy of our party that we do make alliances with organizations like trade unions and political parties or community organizations, faith communities. We make alliances with a lot of those groups and work on issues together that we agree on. To eschew organization just for the point of it is just doesn't make any sense. So if they want to hold to that position, I'd say, they need to get another party. They're not part of our party.
So Rosanna says yes if you agree with the program. Anita, you're saying
Mhm.
I'm ready to talk to you, but I ain't so sure about that. Scott,
Um,
what do you
I think
think? I mean,
I'm with Rosanna. And I imagine I think Anita was saying substantially the same thing as well. So we're a party that strives for collectivity. We act in a collective, disciplined way. That's how working people exercise strength. We don't exercise it as individuals. So if you want to act in that collective way as a communist and still call yourself an anarchist, by all means, come on down. But if you want to act like an anarchist in an individualistic way, thinking you can go off and do your own thing despite the democratically made decision. If you want to act like an anarchist and call yourself a communist, that's not going to work. That's what I'd say.
I say, look, the party's not for everybody. The party is not, and let history be our judge. I mean, didn't the first international break up, split between the anarchists and the communists? I mean, um, that wasn't no accident. If Karl Marx and Fred Engels and them couldn't hold the anarchists, who was it? Kropotkin and the other crazy cats. Then how can we? No, we agree with the end goal, which is a classless society. I mean, and maybe we'll meet there. You know, we'll have a party, you know, and we'll dance at the party. Emma Goldman said, if I can't dance, I don't want to. She was a famous anarchist. I don't want to join your revolution. But in the meanwhile, yeah, let's talk. They talked to Lucy Parsons. Lucy Parsons started off as an anarchist, and she became great friends with, in fact, Lucy Parsons' husband was framed and killed for what happened in Chicago. What was the name of that major? Haymarket.
Haymarket.
Haymarket. But Lucy uh, Parsons moved to the left to more working class, organized Leninist traditions, and she became great friends with Elizabeth Gurley Flynn. And Elizabeth was friends with everybody. That's an important hallmark of a communist leader. You just can't write people off. You got to talk to them. And Lucy finally came into the party, that great African American labor woman, freedom fighter. So there, let's talk. And then if you want to accept our program, come on inside. Until then, we'll be friends. We'll agree on where we can agree. We'll dance together, drink together, you know, and eventually we'll make revolution together. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great week. See you next time on Good Morning Revolution. Until then, stay strong, stay safe, and stay in the fight. Take care.
Bye.
Later, comrades.